Let's look at the last example. Example number 5. An investment portfolio of $20,000 is held from February 1st, 2002 to February 1st, 2012. So over 10 years. A GIC, so I'm going to take out a highlighter and I'm just going to highlight different investments. What we're going to try to do is we're going to try to compare 3 or 4 investments in this, and then we're going to ask to aggregate them or put them all together. So I'm going to start a GIC earning 3.5% is compounded it's compounded monthly is 60% of the portfolio. Okay, well that's different. I've never seen that before. So that looks like it's new. Bonds that pay 6.25%, bonds that pay 6.5% compounded annually are 20% of the portfolio. And last but not least, let's go to green. Who doesn't like green? And the remaining 20% of the portfolio is invested in mutual funds that have an annual yield, a return of 15.8% per year, compounded semi-annually. So I guess the first order of business for me is to simply break this up into 3 different columns. The first column, I'm going to call it the GIC column. The next one, I'm going to maybe call it the bonds column, and it's blue. The next one, I'm going to call the green column, which is the mutual funds column. Now, what is the total value of the portfolio? So really what we're going to have to do is, this is 3 questions in one. Since each investment grows at a different investment or interest rate, we're going to have to figure out how much, number one, I guess the question is how much is invested in each portfolio? Number 2, what is the future value of each portfolio? Now, I'm not going to do that quite yet. I'm going to read question B. So question A, what is the value of the total portfolio? Okay. Question B, what is the annual rate of return? What average annual rate of return does the value in part A represent? All right. So let us get started. I'm just going to maybe start with the GIC. What's a really, really good place to start for each of these columns? Well, for each of these columns, I'm going to be using my calculator, the time value of money solver. So I'm just going to take the time and write all my variable list before we start. Before I get too far ahead of myself, so I've just simply done the next step. It took quite a bit of time, so I just broke up my GIC, wrote down my variable list, my bonds wrote down my variable list, and my mutual funds wrote down my variable list. And now for my GICs, I guess maybe this is the wrong color, but GICs, if 60% of the portfolio is GICs, that means 60% of $20,000, I believe, is $12,000. Now, for bonds, so again, this is the wrong color, I'm sorry. For bonds, if 20% of $20,000 is in bonds, that means that I have $4,000 in bonds. Last but not least, this is mutual funds. Now, whatever mutual fund it might be, 20% at $20,000, so that means that I have another $4,000. So in each of these, here, my present value of my GIC, well, is $12,000. My present value of my bonds are $4,000. my present value of my mutual funds is also $4,000. Now, it is negative $4,000 simply because it's money flowing away. So why don't you fill in the rest of this table and let us see where we stand in a little bit. So press pause, let us do that. I have all the variables plugged in, and now for each category, I'm going to calculate my future amount. So I'm going to be using the TVM solver 3 separate times. So I calculate the 3 separate future values, and these are the results that I got. Feel free to press pause if any one of these values don't match up. Now let's keep in mind that the value of the total portfolio at the end of the 10 years. So what I'm getting is, if I add up all the future values, it's $48,830.28. So that's all fine and dandy right now. Now I'm just going to maybe try to keep it there. What is the average rate of return? So now be careful, because here it says, what is the average annual rate of return? Well, the rate of return in general is just the interest or your gain or loss. So the interest divided by my principal times 100. And my interest here, well, I invested initially $20,000, so that's also my principal, right? But my interest is, how much did I gain? Well, I gained $42,830.28 minus $20,000. In other words, I gained $22,830.28, and I multiply that by 100. That will give me my overall rate of return. And if I look at my calculator, I have $42,000 in there, so I'm just going to subtract $20,000. Pardon me. Anyways, my rate of return over the years, over the 10 years, is 114.15%. Now my annual rate of return simply is, I take my return rate, which is 114.15%, and I divide it over 10 years. So my annual rate of return is 11.4. Sorry, my pen's not writing down there. 11, I'll write it up here. 11.415%. Now that's my final answer, so I'm just going to simply highlight it. If you have any questions, make sure that you ask in class, and best of luck to you.